Alright you guys, this is part 2 of assembling your plans for your X47B little drone here. Pick up where we left off. I went ahead and cut out the main airframe. We've got our fuselage, the top of our fuselage, our main airframe here, which was all this. Alright, so moving on, I want to take and build this KF airfoil. So take and cut it off our plans. And KF airfoil is going to go on the bottom of your jet on this build. And the battery. So what I'm going to do is cut this KF airfoil in 2 pieces. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut off where the battery is going to be. I've got an extra piece of foam laying around here. Go ahead and put these together. What I do is just put it on the foam and just mark all your corners. Just like so. And come back with your ruler. Going to connect the lines here. And again, your KF airfoil is on the bottom of your X47B. We got to make 2 identical pieces here. I'm going to come in here with my razor knife. Go ahead and cut this out. It's just going to be a straight cut on the back. The only thing you're going to cut at a 45 is the front leading edge. Now we're taking 45, the leading edge. And just go ahead and finish up the rest of your straight cuts. Just going to freehand some of this stuff. So there we have one side of our KF airfoil. So I'll go ahead and make an identical piece to that. Just go back to my piece of foam. Go ahead and mark all your corners. Again, I'm just making an identical piece to the KF airfoil we just cut out. Go ahead and 45 your leading edge again. Then straight cut the rest. Go ahead and freehand some of this. Now we got both pieces of our KF airfoil. There's some of this scrap. Always keep your plans laying around because you're going to need them. Cutting out more pieces out of them. Alright, now that I did that, I'm going to flip the main wing over. Install these KF airfoils. Now you're 45 on the top of your jet, just like so, and you want this 45 to be opposite. Just take and line it up here. That looks good. I'll just go ahead and foam safe glue this on. And just find the front point here and then set it on there slowly. Line up both edges here. Don't press too hard because you don't want to press your dihedral out of your main wing. And again, our battery is going to be located on the bottom of this jet. Let's go ahead and stick on our other KF airfoil. Go ahead and line up the front. Just slowly center it on there. Just like so. If anything don't line up, you can just come back and trim it up a little bit. So there we still got our dihedral. We got a 45 on the top of our leading edge, then a 45 on the bottom. Alright, we'll move on to cutting out the thrust tube. What I do is just come in here with a pair of scissors. Again, to build this thrust vectoring tube, you can go to the website and just go to the build videos and watch how I built the thrust vectoring nozzle. Again, I'm just going to use my plans here, cut out my thrust tube. I'll flip our jet back over. Just want to center this on here. Center it up real nice. Go ahead and mark it. Just gonna mark all these corners. Make sure your plans don't move around on you. Want to keep them in one spot. I'll go back in here with my ruler and mark out these lines. Now when I marked this for the 30mm and the 28mm lines, I went ahead and just made them a little tighter than they should be, so that way when you cut this out you can go back and trim it to fit your thrust tube better. Just didn't want to make you overcut, cut out too much. Alright, now I'll go back in here and cut this out with my razor knife. These are all just straight cuts. Go ahead and freehand up these two. Alright, now we'll install our thrust vectoring system here. Now you'll see when I built this thrust tube, we got our carbon fiber rod sticking out where our swivel joint is. So I'll go ahead and mark around those. So we're going to trim out a little bit of this foam back here. Again, your thrust tube might turn out a little bit different size and stuff, so I didn't make these lines for you. You can just go back and mark them out to whatever fits your thrust tube, just like so. Go ahead and trim out. So there we got our thrust tube. That'll give us that room we need for everything to move around, for our thrust vector nozzle to move. Now you can hot glue your thrust tube in here, or you can CA glue it, or you can even run just clear tape. So that way if you want to pull this off later on down the road, you can use it on another jet. When you put your thrust tube on, you want it centered from the bottom and the top. Maybe a little more sticking out the bottom than the top, because you want to make sure your fuselage, top of your fuselage fits over it. Right there it does. I'm going to go ahead and push it up to it. Alright, that's all got enough clearance there. So let's go ahead and install our main fuselage onto our main wing. What I want to do here is I'll just take a couple of pencils and prop them up underneath our jet. About like that. Just put two pencils out near that where your wings connect on here. When we push this on, I don't want to lose our KF airfoil. I'll just go ahead and spot this with a couple of, you know what, let's go ahead and pull this blue tape off here. I'm going to take and put some clear tape this piece up before I install it. Again, I just used the blue tape to hold these pieces together while I foam safe glued them. That was in part one. I'll go ahead and clear tape up some of this stuff. Add some strength to it. Break out a new roll of clear tape. And you want to put clear tape over all the joints on here, wherever it connects together. on the outside and on the inside. Just go ahead and do the outside real fast here. Just going to add some strength. Give you a nice smooth surface when you paint it. I mean, you can put as much clear tape as you want on these things. Really not going to add any weight or anything. So I'll go ahead and clear tape all these score lines that we made. Always relief cut your tape if it's going to go around a bend or anything, so it'll show up in your paint. Start working all 4 of them. I'll go ahead and tape the inside too. Just strengthen up this piece real nice. So we're going to be cutting some hatches in there. Still got to cut out the air intake on the front of it. Just want to make sure it's nice and strong. Alright, just like so, guys. Now we can apply it to our main airframe here. Make sure you put your pencils in place. You don't want to lose your dihedral. And what I do is I just center from where the back of this is and the front. I just center it in between. Leave the equal amount of space from the front and the back. Right there looks good. I'll go ahead and mark this. Because when I apply this with some hot glue, I want to make sure I lay it right in the same spot. Again, normally I would just use the foam safe, but I don't want to wait around for the dry time. I'm just going to use a little hot glue. You don't need much because you're going to go back and clear tape this on anyway. So apply the front, follow your lines back. Press it down a little gently here just to get that glue to set up. Alright, there's our fuselage onto our main wing. Like so. Alright, now let's apply this thrust tube. See, I always put the main fuselage on before I slide my thrust tube up through the bottom, just so I can go flush with the top of the fuselage. Oh, that turned out really nice. Alright, now that I got that in there, I'm just going to clear tape it in there. good right there. Go ahead and usually I just clear tape my thrust tubes in. That way I can use this thrust tube for another project down the road. Just put the tape on the bottom and run your finger on it. Push it down into the crack. Now we have our thrust tube assembled. Normally I'd already have my 30mm fan housing and motor all set up in there. As you can see, we got our thrust vector nozzle. All turned out nice. Alright, now when I cut out the main fuselage, we had scored those lines on our pieces. I just went ahead and took those 4 pieces and taped them back together, because now we got to cut out our air intake. Go ahead and just use your scissors to cut out the whole piece. We're going to lay this on the fuselage, front of the fuselage, trace it out, and get our air intake put on here. Just like so. I'll go ahead and center it on there. You can put this as high as you want, kind of low as you want. You can move it around a little, play around if you want. I usually bring it up closer to the top. Go ahead and trace this out real fast. Again, this is going to be our air intake for our EDF unit. There, I went ahead and traced it out on there. If you guys are building any of my jets, I would tell you just go ahead and use these X-Acto knives to do a lot of these cutting hatches and just for a lot of sharp curves and stuff. They work awesome. I'm just going to go ahead and freehand this out. It's basically just straight cutting. Might have to get through some of that foam safe glue you got in there, so it might be a little tough, but just take your time with it. Cut out our air intake. Just going to move on to cutting out some hatches here. Now you guys can make your hatches wherever you want on top. I just choose to just make it big enough so you can get your fingers in there and stick your electronics in. I'm going to say about right there and here. Lines across. On the other video I showed you how to cut out your hatches. I always cut at a 45 on the line toward the inside of the piece. I'll just go ahead and freehand this out. Again, make sure you're at a 45. That way when your piece comes off, it'll set right back down in there and real nice without falling through. Thinking I'm probably going to run out of time any second now with my camera. I have to do a part 3. It's about 7 in the morning here in Michigan. So there we cut out our hatch. Now I'll just take and put a piece of clear tape. I want my hatch to open from the back, so this way I ain't got to use no magnets or anything to keep it shut. Just the air passing over it alone will do that for me. So there we got our hatch, which will give you access to sticking your receiver down in there. It's a really nice way to make these hatches. And again, I just cut out a 45 on the line toward the inside of the piece on all 4 sides. Here's a battery we'll be using for this jet. I'll do a video on how to just make this battery. It's pretty simple. I just cut the plastic off and then split, laid the battery open, the 2 pieces, put a couple of pieces of carbon fiber rod, clear taped around them. And then I stuck a piece of blue tape around this one to finish it up. There, I got my Velcro on the back. I'll go ahead and trim up this battery compartment to fit. Remember guys, you can always go back and trim stuff up the way you want it. Here I'd normally use a ruler, but I'm just going to freehand this stuff out of here. There's where your battery's going to sit down in there real nice on your KF airfoil. Gives you a nice sleek design, no drag. Like so. So again, I'll do a whole video on that battery there. Alright you guys. Make sure we went over all the steps. We got our elevons cut and hinged. Cut out our battery compartment. Air intake. Now at this point I'd go ahead and start clear taping it, just like the rest of my jets. Just apply your clear tape wherever you want to strengthen it up. Again, don't push hard down on your jet, you don't want to take the airfoil out of it or nothing. This clear tape adds a lot of rigidity and strength to this foam. Then it prevents it from cracking in these areas. Just going to go ahead and apply it wherever I feel I need it. Make sure it's down on there real nice and tight, so when you do your painting everything turns out nice. And you can go ahead and clear tape some of these cracks. Again, the clear tape covers up any of the imperfections, like where we made our score lines and stuff. Makes everything look real nice.